we talk about these as ranked drops, but this is also just for anybody that likes to win,
Yeah,
and
totally,
likes
totally.
to play for the end game. This is how you can set yourself up for that.
Oh no, there's another squad attacking.
We're going to keep it rolling. We're going to give you a little bit of a ranked guide for this map really early, but a lot of people like to go straight into ranked. Henry and I might be guilty of it on Tuesday. And so let's kind of talk about some of our early inclinations for a rank drop. And in doing so, give our listeners a bit of a reminder for what you and I look at in a rank drop. Because I think this is going to be a nice refresher to have because Olympus was so drastically different than what we have kind of been preaching for the entirety of the podcast.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about these as ranked drops, but this is also just for anybody that likes to win,
Yeah,
and
totally,
likes
totally.
to play for the end game. This is how you can set yourself up for that in the most consistent way,
Mhm,
mitigating your risk. But what we look for generally is perimeter location. We don't want
mhm,
to drop in the center of the map. It's going to be too contested. We also want to look for a location that has a decent amount of loot for 3 players. So full squad, you're able to loot up here. It's on the perimeter,
mhm,
but we're also it's not just the loot quality or the loot
mhm,
rarity. It's the loot proximity. So if the loot is really spread out at a POI, it's more risky because your team will have to separate, which
mhm,
leads to the opportunity to be divided and conquered.
mhm.
So we
Yep.
kind of want to downplay that as much as possible. POIs like Antenna on this map are well located, but the loot is very separated. So it's scary to drop there just because you have no choice but
Mhm.
to divide yourself and weaken your team because of it.
Yeah, totally.
And the last thing we look at is, does it have those great rotations or opportunities for third parties? Can you get that early kill point opportunity by landing in this location? You're not just going in the middle of nowhere and looting up. You're getting to a perfect spot that can get you enough equipment to get an early third party at a more popular POI. So that's really the picture that we're trying to paint, and I think we have some really good options.
Yeah, we have some good options, and we'll say, like, a couple of them do have the caveat of, like kinda how we said with the major POIs. If this becomes a really hot drop for whatever reason, might not be as strong of a ranked POI, but based off of where we think loot's concentrated, I think there's some indications for what that'll be. Starting with maybe I think our early favorite POI, Shipfall, aka Star Wars: The Clone Wars separatist droid ship. Essentially, I don't know
It
the exact name off the top of my head.
it really spoke to us, at least the
Mhm.
design of it. I don't know. In the past, I really like the ship POIs. Um,
Yeah, you got a
Carrier,
thing for the
big
boats. Yeah,
big
you do.
favorite. So you just crash a ship, and I'm gonna go there. Like at this point, it's a trope. But yeah, Shipfall as a potential ranked winning POI drop. It's the remnants of the original survivors of Storm Point,
Hmm.
and the remains of the doomed vessel are there, eroded
Yep.
over decades. The engine section is still intact and is really the stronghold of the POI. So you fight your way through that. But Shipfall is a great drop location for a multitude of reasons, all
Hmm.
the ones that we were talking about. Inside the actual ship, there's floor loot as well as 11 supply bins, which is a lot of loot. No question about it. Then there's a spill off location that has 3 solidly sized buildings with a
Hmm.
survey beacon spawn and a crafting station spawn. And then what I kind of like about it is you have multiple levels of fighting. So you have the opportunity to get the separation you need in order to kind of pull back, put on the pressure, dominate any other team that tries to push you because you know what you're doing and you know the
Yep.
location. And so you kind of have the top of the ship
Hmm.
and then inside the belly of the ship. And really, it's kind of a microcosm of the entire map because it
Hmm.
is very much on a steep incline.
Totally.
And then there's also nearby tridents that allow for those easy rotations. And the spill off places for those could be very viable as well to just
Mm-hmm.
completely avoid dropping and fighting initially and just going for that trident on the edge of the map, which is something we've never really seen done on Olympus, but
Mm-hmm.
maybe a new strategy here.
Yeah. Well, I think it could be a very strong early strategy for us to have some success in ranked right now.
Yeah, do you have anything else to add about Shipfall?
I mean, I think this POI is one gorgeous. It's got a beautiful aesthetic on the crash ship. They did a great job with the design. I think it's an early favorite because of that spill off location. The fact that the spill off location in of itself has the beacon and the crafting, so there's an advantage for when you already have this very large POI that's going to provide a lot of loot. But if you get that spot uncontested, you have this thing that we think could potentially, like in an emergency, fulfill three people's loot needs, but you then can just loot it by yourself as one person and then give the entire ship to two other people. It's one of those in that way, kind of like how we like rig and then splitting off one person to the smaller unnamed POI near it. I think it's a very strong early candidate for a good drop.
Yeah, and really, many people could say Barometer is the heart of this map, but if you're thinking from a lore perspective, this
Yeah.
is the epicenter. This is
Mm-hmm.
where it all started. This is most likely why the majority of us are there. And it is the crash ship of Bangalore, the
Mm-hmm.
IMS Hestia. So a lot of lore here, probably going to be more voice lines in the reveal trailer. This is where Watson, Pathfinder, and Seer were camped out. They tried, but we'll see what happens in game when we give it a shot.
Well, the second POI, we have high point for a ranked drop. So we lied a little bit. And when we said there's no balloons, High Point is actually home to the only redeploy balloon on the map. So it's a big one that's reskinned to look like a weather balloon. It sits at the top of the longest hill. It's a vital choke point to the top of the mountain. In a standoff look around, you may discover hidden tunnels, though, that'll allow you to flake and flank around it. I know this is the name of itself it's going to make the list when you call it High Point, and HB's on this podcast.
Of course, of course. I mean, this is the perfect kind of power position, high ground opportunity. Yeah, it speaks to me. What else can I say?
I mean, in terms of drop advantages, like you kind of mentioned, you are at the near the highest point on the map, and so you get to fight downhill if the zone goes from there, and that's a really nice advantage to have. You have great rotational options though here, super long zip lines, the only balloon, multiple different pathways out, and that's just going to be a very powerful rank drop in of itself. The loot's very clustered together. You're not going to have to separate as a team too much. You got a survey beacon nearby, and so that's a very nice portion as well. It's just overall a solid drop that checks a lot of the boxes for things we're looking for.
Yeah, I love it. It's on our list to be a ranked drop location, but it is big. There is a ton of loot here. It is
Mm-hmm.
very possible that this ends up being a hotly contested position. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I really like it. It speaks to me. I'm going to practice it 100%.
Yep.
And it is on the high ground, on the edge. It's got everything we need. Let's just not tell anybody about it because
Mm-hmm.
it's that good. So this
You
is
heard it
one to
here,
really tuck
and now
away.
never again. Yep.
No, you tell your only your ranked squad. Don't tell the people you just play casually with because this one is important to protect. It's got everything you need.
My goodness. Walk us through the next one. Walk us through the wall.
Yeah, so if you take this only jump tower or you take the longest zip line in the game, you're going to go to the wall,
Mm-hmm.
which I I feel like we're saying it a lot, but I really like the look of this one as
Mm-hmm.
well.
Mm-hmm.
That may or may not be a major reason why it's on the list, but essentially, the wall is the great divider between the northern beach and the mountain. So the wall is a critical landing spot for those who seek combat. It acts as the choke point between two significant sections of the map. And, you know, this one will come down to how popular of a drop spot it is. But
Yeah.
our early impressions is it's kind of reminiscent of the dome.
Mm-hmm.
Large looting area and a POI, but not heavily trafficked. Because
Mm-hmm.
it's on the corner, I don't think it's going to be as popular as maybe it deserves to be.
And it's near command center and
Mhm.
checkpoint essentially, which are kind of two of those hotter drops. And so you might lose people in that frame because they want to go to those two spots.
Yeah, but this place is huge. Inside the interior portions of the wall, you have a lot of loot. You have a gravity cannon out to North Pad, but also just it's big. It's big. There's
Hmm.
lots of really large buildings outside of the wall going up to High Point. So you have the easy options to rotate out through the zip lines, gravity cannons, incredibly strong loot overall that can sustain multiple teams, to be honest. And it's potentially a good spot for teams wanting to take a fight right off the drop, just because I think you'll be able to section off different teams. You're not going to be landing on the same exact building because there are so many. So,
Hmm.
good options there. And of course, there's the nearby survey beacon spawn to the east or through the cannon to North Pad. So, you do have that option to get the survey intel, which we always are hungry for.
If there's survey intel, you'll find us there. And speaking of survey intel, we got Thunderwatch. It has a beacon. What? Crazy.
Of
Mind
course,
blown. So, Thunderwatch is a gateway to the top of the mountain. Its interior is a tightly focused close quarter combat area with a gravity cannon that allows for quick access from the bottom of the mountain and a quick escape if needed. And that escape is one of those advantages that we're going to talk about. Being able to really quickly get out. And I think one of the advantages you're going to have to look to with these gravity cannons is yes, you can be followed, but you're going to land first. And that's going to be an advantage in of itself when someone's flying in and you can get the first shots on them because of that. And so it's an escape. It also might be a nice little technique to try and win a fight and need be. But
yeah,
yes, beacon, crafting spawn. This is probably not towards the top of the list in terms of like super strong loot, but that's kind of okay because there's these spill off unnamed POIs that if you don't get the best of luck on your loot, this is going to be, you're going to be able to supplement there. And this looks like a POI that's not going to be heavily trafficked. And so this could be a nice drop if you are one that wants to kind of stay away from the crowd early on. And yeah, you got that cannon right to Stormcatcher for the third party, and then you can get that loot because we say loot bodies, not buildings.
pretty much. I mean, I have to agree with you that I think this one is a little bit more skillful of a drop. You're going to have
Hmm.
to be a little more scrappy. You're going to be a little more aggressive for a rank drop. But I really like this option because having a cannon pointed directly at a popular POI is just a third party paradise.
Yep.
Like, that's
Yep.
exactly what we want. Let me drop and get a gun and then blast me right on top of the head
Of
of
another team.
another team
Yeah.
fighting. So it's pretty perfect. But I also like it because A, you have that, but B, you do have the ability to run the opposite direction into the perimeter.
Hmm.
And there's a POI that is honestly larger than Thunderwatch, but unnamed.
Yep.
So Thunderwatch is really this one to look out for because it's smaller than many of the unnamed POIs, but it's positioned so clearly. And because of that, gravity cannon gives you a lot of utility.
Totally. Totally. Well said. I think this is going to be a good one for the people that want to avoid those contests off drop, especially in the early stages when we don't know exactly where people will drop for sure.
Next, we have fish farms. Now, this is one that is definitely a brand new style to anything
Hmm.
we've seen before. Have a chain of islands separated by open water. The fish farm is a large area with clean separation between the lootable buildings. Cross the open water cautiously, though, or use the trident to hover along the waterways. And there's this one peninsula to the east of fish farms that
Hmm.
pretty much is just a parking location for a trident. Not much else but that. That's something to look at, like we said at the top of the show, as maybe an early strategy for ranked.
Yeah, yeah, it could be a very strong advantage. I really do believe these tridents will play in the map a lot more, at least into my personal play style than they did in Olympus right now.
I think that fish farms I was hesitant about including it in this list because it is a bit spread out. You are running that risk of kind of getting too separated from a team and then adding on top the water to that, it is a risk. But because of its proximity and it's in the corner pocket, I think it's a contender and one that may be overlooked by others.
Yeah, I mean, you have still the back kind of alcove area, which we personally dropped in and supplied 3 people for an early game fight. So I think between the bins and the buildings and those back there, I think you will be able to survive an early drop even if you get contested. But if you're not, like we're saying, because in the back pocket, you're going to have a real strong advantage because you will be able to loot a lot more. And I think this is a nice spot because if you are a team that likes mid to long range engagements early, this is a high visibility area, not a ton of verticality outside of the buildings. And because of that, you're going to be able to recognize if a third party's coming in. And also, you're going to be able to see a trident coming. You're going to be able to really just see anything happening. And like we said, multiple tridents, early rotations. You got that quick third party towards Shipfall. There's a cannon that literally takes you right there. Crafting, survey beacon, starts checking all the boxes, edge of the map, like we said. I think this could be a strong one. This is another one that's going to potentially come down to how contested is it. But I see it right now as almost like a rig style drop where because it's so far on the edge of the map, you might just find people not really giving it the love it deserves.
Absolutely.